Hola community, how are you? I know I shouldn't start with hola because then YouTube thinks that this video is in Spanish and then all the translations are wrong. Hello YouTube, I am making a video in English and this is another week, another recap of what's new in Blender since last week. It's been super full of updates. Why? Because Blender 2.92 is now in beta, which means 2.93 is in alpha. I know, Blender 2.91 is the official release out there. There is a new, actually it hasn't been announced, I think. 2.91.1 is coming out this week, Wednesday. Next week there will be a new update on 2.83 LTS, 0.11 or something like that. Developers are giving it all, really. 2.91 is going to be more stable for those that are using it right now and then are having issues. And also AMD graphics cards, there are some compatibility issues there. So that's going to be fixed in case you want to keep using 2.91. However, in like 1 month and maybe more, 5 weeks or so, 2.92 is going to come out. It's currently in beta, which means no new updates. However, there is one exception to the rule that we're going to talk about it in a bit now, because there is a tool that was supposed to be experimental that got enabled and fixed a few by community feedback. It's like, no, this is good to go. So we're going to talk about it in a bit. How's everybody doing? You like my rocket here? I made the setup wider though. I put the camera more to the back so we can fit more of my messy background. So let's get to it. In Blender.Today, in the community of Blender.Today, you're gonna find the thread made by Blender Defender. Thanks for making it. We're going to be reading and checking out the questions towards the later in the show. In the Spanish community, I made a Discord server, and people are going to be asking questions on audio, like with their voices, and I love that concept. I don't know how we're gonna make it happen here in this stream, but eventually at some point it will be fun. But well, we're gonna talk about it. So I just compiled Blender just now. Let's get to see what's new in Blender. But first, a call for participation for content for developers. If you are a developer and a Mac user, I know the odds are very slim, but if you are familiar, if you're a developer and familiar with the Mac OS code, there is an issue currently that only affects AMD graphics cards and OS X, Mac OS. So you can follow this thread. It's the task is T8169. I'm gonna put it in the video description, and here you can see there's been a lot of help from the community to try to nail down what are the issues that are making this happen. Yeah, we need more developers actually to look at. It's not for the use. This call is not for the users. It's for the developers. As you can see here, there is Sebas, developer of Mantaflow, says, I still hope that there is someone out there with macOS GPU experience who can shed some light in the issue. So please, dark mode, please. Is there dark mode in Fabricator? Don't tell me I've been using it all wrong. Is there dark mode in the developer.blender.org? Please. Okay. Let me answer in the comments. I'm checking out the comments here, by the way. So I read one. He's like, Pablo doesn't read the comments. I do read the comments. That's how I kick out people from when we get spammers. It's a one-man show. This. All right. With the call for content done, let's pipe into the following section. It's a new feature, an existing feature, but it's gonna making in the Blender 2.92 release. So add object tool. It's been around for a while. So if you go to Blender, you probably have seen, if you use the development versions of Blender, you probably have seen that here, that on the sidebar there is this. Okay, let me make this slightly bigger. 1.2. here that there is a add cube tool. So this was done really long time ago, then it got removed, then it got added, then it got like pretty much added back, removed. Why? Because it was there but it wasn't there. It was added but it was missing many important features. Now this is finally here in a usable state, and it's going to ship in Blender 2.92. There is a preview when to try to add things. There is snapping support now, incremental snapping even, and snapping to the surface, incremental snapping, snapping to other parts of the mesh, and there is a fixed aspect option. Let's go to the commit itself to see what Campbell has been working on. So add initial fixed aspect option. This makes it more convenient to add many objects with a fixed aspect ratio. So in case you wanna you want to set the aspect ratio once and use it multiple times, this is pretty handy. Incremental snapping, as I was mentioning now, you are gonna be able now to have this snap to option, to use the snap to options. Allows using all the scene's snap settings, which includes incremental and absolute grid snapping options. This is optional because always following scene, no, it should be optional. Also would not snap to geometry by default. Yeah, it should be optional. Then this one in particular, it's scale the cursor plane based on the depth. Oh, okay, so it's using how far away is from the mesh to draw the cursor plane that it's going to use. Yeah, makes sense. Otherwise, if the object is too far away, you're going to have a preview this big, the same as if the object was close. So that makes the last one, this is going to make the last one is split aspect and origin options for base and height. Actually, this feature, I haven't seen it. It was added on a Sunday. Campbell, what are you doing? It was yesterday. Go to sleep, Campbell. Add object tools. In practice, it's common to these settings shouldn't be linked from drawing the initial base plane compared to with the height. Let's see where's that. So it's the split. Well, there are so many options. Ew, there is one with the dots here, like more. Oh, here, there you go. So you can have base and the origin you can do for center and edge, or free or fixed aspect ratio for both. Ah, that's cool. So for the bottom of when you start drawing the shape, the object, or the tip, the height. Super nice. Thank you, Campbell. Still, shouldn't be working on a Sunday, please. Holidays. Next improvement is now let's go into some of these features were added because the cutting point for 2.92 beta was last week Wednesday. There are some features that are part of 2.92, however most of them are 2.93. Let's see. Pretty yeah, the pretty handy thing became a thing. I'm checking the comments here. Juan from Mateo, how are ya? Do you have any comments this week? I don't think so. I was looking at the list and I don't think so. But it's good to see you. Let's see. All right. Next, I have even fixes this week, and I have a bunch of new notes. I have physics updates this week. Oh my gosh, where should I start? Let's go with Grease Pencil. Cling, cling, cling. Grease Pencil, there is a bunch of new features and improvements. There's fixes too. I don't mention the fixes, but I have seen a lot of fixes in Grease Pencil. This one in particular is a new feature. It's a new parameter for the noise, offset. So you have allows you to, so this patch adds a noise offset option to the Grease Pencil noise modifier. Allows the user to animate the noise along the length of the stroke to create a movement that is currently not possible. Oh, that's super nice. It works by adding an offset to the noise table and adding the remaining floating point value to the noise table sampling. That's super cool. Yeah, actually, yeah, it is. It's not possible. Oh, and this one is my favorite of the week. Well, are all my favorites. And by the way, thank you, Cody Winchester, for working on this. Antonio, on the other side, added this amazing feature. It's the, you know, the transform layers. Well, now you have multiple settings available. So let me zoom in because it's so awesome that we need to see it up close. Here. And let's call my evil twin to click. Oh, actually, I have a new scene for this. There. Bam. Location, rotation, scale in its individual axis. Each one of them you can tweak, and they're gonna be set separately. Should it be a sub panel? No, because otherwise it's inside of adjustment, so it will be like sub panel, and then it it loses the. It makes it really. Maybe it should be a new panel, a new sub panel called transform, or so, right? Because having the tint color next to the thickness, next to the transforms, I think so. What you guys think? It's a like, instead of having everything is just adjustments, because you could call adjustments everything, right? Like a mask is an adjustment, a display is an adjustment. So I think a transform sub panel at the same level as this one, not inside, with this location, rotation, scale, maybe better. But yeah, super nice. Next is a feature that will help you when you are doing storyboarding, for example. When you do storyboardings, it's better to when using the fill tool. At the moment, the fill tool is too precise. It's very precise, not too precise. It's very precise. So unless you close the shapes, for example, very precisely, hence the new option that was called resolution, now it's called precision. Now you can control this setting, so you can actually have like a more sketchy drawing and then fill more easily, which is pretty handy when you're doing things without much detail, for like storyboarding, for example. All right, next in the list. Okay, that's all for Grease Pencil. Shall we go into no, let's not geometry nodes yet, because it's time for motion tracking improvements. There is one. Well, there's many. There is actually a bunch of commits for improvements in performance and in the optimizations overall of the code. There is one, though, that is an actual new feature which implements tracks average operator. So you have a bunch of tracking points. There is an operator now, an action, a button, an operation that you can do to average them. So you take the, for example, let's read what the author has to say. Our very own Sergey Sharevin. Tracking implements track average operator. Average selected tracks into the new one. This can be used to improve stability of tracking on blurry or non-very sharp featured shapes. Yeah, so if it's not very very sharp, or if your footage is not very sharp, maybe or if it's blurry, then it's not gonna be very precise, right? It can be shaky. So you can use many of these points and try to stabilize it. All right. Averaging happens for all positions, pattern corners, and search area. Disabled markers do not take effect on averaging. Keyframe flag is copied from source. Gaps in the source tracks will be nearly interpolated to reduce result track jump. Note that this only applies to gaps in between. Okay, in between the tracks. This means that if an input track doesn't have the markers in the beginning or the end of it, there is nothing to interpolate with, and the result track will jump. Available from the track panel under the merge category. Is there any image by the team, please? No. It is pretty cool though, like Finn says in the chat. That's very cool. Next, okay, now let's see geometry nodes. Geometry nodes. Okay, bunch of new nodes this week and improvements to already existing nodes. This is all for 2.93 though. So as you may know, if you follow the show, in 2.92, the major feature of 2.92 is geometry nodes. However, it's in a, well, not however, I mean, it is on a very early stage, you could say. People were asking on Twitter, is it ready for production? And I would say yes. For what is there, so for the limited amount of features that it has, it is ready for production. You know, it's like if they give you a ball, just a ball, a bouncing ball, that's ready for is it ready for production? Maybe it's missing a bunch of new features, but no, like the bounce feature is there, so limited functionality, but ready to be used for production. These new features though, it really opens the possibilities of what you can do with geometry nodes, and this is available in 2.93. Let's start with this new node that is really gonna open as here, like what Hans is mentioning in the chat. So this is the new node called Attribute Vector Math. Pretty similar to what you have what you already know from other vector maths, for like shading, for example. You can do the popular operations, cross product, project, dot product, modulo, everything, but with attributes. So any attribute in your mesh, any new attributes that you create, they are gonna be they can be operated with this. This is really okay. Here Hans says this should expand what's possible with geometry nodes quite a bit. So far, not having the option to do vector math was quite limiting. So yes, expect crazy renders soon. I'm about to sneeze, but I don't want to. Oh, holding a sneeze is the worst. Okay, it's gone. It's gone. You know what's not gone? The new node, because there is a new specific node for aligning the rotation to a vector. So this will give you the option where you can choose the axis, the factor, and the vector. It can be an attribute or it can be a float vector factor, for example, and the same for vectors. You have a value that you can control, and this, yes, it's very ad hoc. It's like aligned rotation to vector, but it would also, especially if you want to control the rotation. So, you know, this Geometry Nodes project was started having in mind the project by the Blender Cloud, by the Blender Blender Institute, Blender Studio, Sprite Fright. There are many examples that were used for geometry nodes in this project. The most basic one was like, okay, grass, that's it. Shows distribution. Okay, cool, that's done. Next, the other example is to have the trees. Like if you have a tree with leaves, you want to control the rotation of those leaves to the smallest detail, which is not really possible. How would you control the like currently in the particle system in Blender, the rotation is just like, good luck, bro. You go on your own. Rotation is a mess. It's even sometimes not super stable. So one of the main focuses for, I would say the main focus for the very first version of geometry nodes for scattering of the objects is to control rotation properly. So there are two nodes that we're going to see today that are related to this task. The first one is the align rotation to vector node, and then there is another improvement that we're going to see in a moment. It's for the point distribution. But first, new nodes. Two new nodes having added in the same commit. These are to control more, you know, there was a point rotate node, or rotate points. Now it was renamed to point rotate. Now there's also nodes for translating and for scaling the points. This makes sense, right? We have point rotation. Now you can also translate. Very simple. Translate, give an attribute, and the same for scale. In the case of point translate, it will just basically override the position, whereas in scale it will multiply. So I think it's mentioned over here. Yes, it's using multiplication for the scale. Now it's not replacing the entire the entire scale of the node. Is multiplying on top of it. Isn't that nice? These remember, these are the building blocks. These building blocks in the future are going to help to build more complex setups. So yeah, point translate and point scale are super basic nodes, and in the future hopefully we can ship Blender even once we have the asset browser more polished, and we can ship with some group of nodes that will make it much more that you can actually you see one node for making fire, one node for making a table, a monkey, and then you double click or you tab into it. You still have to figure out, then you go in and then you see a bunch of nodes, and maybe some of those nodes you also have to double click and then inside, and it's all building blocks. So the idea is to start with the smaller nodes that can make into bigger nodes. Not trees, not setups. All right, this is an improvement actually to the node groups. You know, in the geometry nodes, when you are building your modifier, it's basically a modifier. You can expose certain features of this modifier. You can expose like sliders. Now you can also expose the object and collection sockets. So if we see here, it's very simple. It's not going to be a tutorial. I just want to show that it works. So just add. Oh, by the way, yeah, the idea is to also have a dedicated workspace for geometry nodes, which is still not there, but it would be very simple. I think it's just a matter of having the geometry nodes editor down here and the viewport down there and the modifier here. So you just click add new. And for example, if you have like object info, now you can expose this up here. Oops, my face. And this should show up here. This wasn't possible before. And the same with collections. With collection, we have collection info, but I think we can do it with point instance, points distribute. All the other imp outputs there are available, even the boolean one. So you have boolean, oops, boolean, Pablo boolean here. This should also be available here. So it looks like a 0, 1, but it's a checkbox. Let's see. Next, I think we are close to, yes, the one that I remember I mentioned about aligning to normal. Well, there's 2 improvements done in the point distribute node. The one this already was possible. This node has been around since the very first version of geometry nodes that is in master. But now align points to face normal. Finally. So if you have an object, this is a more flexible approach basically. So the align rotation to vector node can be used in the future, but this is for more like having more control over it. This is more the normal attribute is created with the triangle normal at each point. So you can use this in the future with the point distribution. So actually you shouldn't see any difference out of the box. Then you have the point distribute node, which you are going to see a difference because now this works in 3D. You may have noticed, well, some other changes too. It's easier to extend in the future for having more types of distributing nodes, but it's also more predictable. So what you're going to notice is that it now works better. Basically, if you played with the point distribution, with the Poisson distribution, you probably notice that the like halfway, the particles were like stuck or weren't really where you would expect it. Now they are. So yes, it's a fix more than a feature. It is a feature and a cleanup and a communication device. And how is it in the first iPhone? The three things is an email, it's a browser, communication device. All right, I think that it's all for the geometry nodes project. I think I cover all the points. We have a few more. There is a potpourri section because I couldn't fit all of them, and some fixes. So let's get to it. Let's switch into physics. This little improvement, quality of life improvements. Have you ever used the collision modifier? Like collision in Blender, they are modifiers, right? You can put it you can move it around in the stack, but there was no way to disable the collision. Like you have to remove the collision altogether, like the modifier altogether, if you want to like just momentarily just, okay, I want to try without the collision, and it was super annoying. Not anymore. Now you can actually disable the collision without removing the modifier, thanks to Alexander Gavrilov. So super nice quality of life improvement. And another improvement related to the cloth, same, it's a new feature. Actually, it's not an improvement. Well, it is an improvement, but it's a new feature. Now you can specify a vertex group to be excluded from the object collision. So when you have a specific part of your cloth with you don't need to use the entire object or like split into different objects, one with collision, one without collision. Now you can specify a vertex group. Wait, this can be, it's a vertex group, right? So it can be dynamically created by other objects, or like with like vertex group. How would it work with a vertex group edit or proximity modifier? Oh, now I want to play with it. Vertexception, exactly, in sensitive cloth. Vertexception. How's that gonna work? Wow. Changing on the fly where the cloth is. Oh! So if a cloth is on the table, then actually this maybe lets you make more stable collisions, because then you don't have to calculate it in some parts. So instead of just waiting for the cloth to just like stop like shaking, maybe that's yeah, that's a really good use. Super nice. Thank you, Alexander Gavrilov. Very much welcome. And while we are in the Alexander Gavrilov section of Blender, this commit here, it's a weight paint improvement. So Alexander works in many areas related to rigging and sometimes physics, as we can see, but it's mainly rigging, in the rigging department, and depth graph and all of that. About creating very small values with locked weights. When painting using auto normalize option or the log relative option, with some groups locked, the locked weights may not add up precisely to 1 because of precision limitations. It results in creating non-zero weights, which is not what you would expect. With locked relative display made this very obvious, so it's a fix. Don't run auto normalize when not painting a deformed group. So yes, it is the number 10,000 diff in developer.blender.org, and it's a improvement. This other option is a quality of life improvement. So based on feedback on right click select, this bevel modifier now use angle limit method by default. So this right click select post outlines the reasons to make angle the default limit method. As you can see, it was very popular, 42 points. Actually, did you know that if you mouse over, you can see how positive it is? So 98% positive, which means that it has some downvotes. Some people downvoted it, but 98% of the people did upvote it. So in short, beveling every single edge rather than just sharp edges is rarely the desired behavior, and the placement of the property in the UI makes it easy to see the property's importance to and toggle it. So super nice. You see, right click select. It's important when you see, no, why would I post it on right click select and people don't read it? They do read it, and the community reads it. This is very important. When you see that 98% of the people find this, especially for things like this that are easy changes, just a default, like, okay, what is there was other changes too recently in the way some constraints had default, like track 2. I remember that constraint also had a weird defaults, and people were constantly changing until they made a, okay, they made a right click select. Should we change it or not? Let's move on. Oh, it's a new option, compositor. Hey, compositors out there, if you use the file output node, now we're gonna find a new setting called save as render. So this commits adds the save as render feature to the file output node that allows to disable the application of the configure view transform and other color management settings on the image. If you disable it, it's gonna use the standard view transform instead. Super nice. So you can have different file output nodes with different color management settings. Isn't that great? This feature was originally suggested in this task, and it's part of the color management improvements task in here. So if you're wondering what's coming up, what is on the list for color management improvements, this is it. Task 68.926. Then I think these ones are mainly just this one is a improvement in optimizations in reading. This is actually super important. So every time you open a blend file, which is like very often, but only for uncompressed blend files. So did you know, by the way, just since we're talking about this feature, so you know that Blender can save a compressed file. So you do save as, for example, and you can do like you can press here in the settings, you can make it compressed, which makes it use less space, right? It makes the file smaller. And when I just started with Blender, I was always using this feature. I was like, yes, of course. Why isn't it default? Like, why don't I want to use less space than more space? And then I realized, I was told that, yep, if you compress a file, you use less space, but then you have to uncompress it every time you open the file. So saving and opening a file is gonna be slower. That's why, and I was mind blown. My little 18-year-old head was mind blown. However, when I was 19, I joined a project, a feature film project made with Blender, and there we were using SVN, a versioning system that is pretty popular, but takes care of all the compressing and the diffing and everything. So in there, also, I shouldn't have used compress, and then the team told me, yes, please do not use compress, because SVN already takes care of that, and this is also valid for other kinds of I don't know, for Dropbox, how would it work? Maybe not. Maybe for Dropbox it's better to just use less space, because then you have less up the, because yeah, you don't have diffing. So maybe, yeah. But yeah, that's my learnings in compression in Blender. And then this is a public service announcement, a PSA about optics. So the build bot, so builder.blender.org, the builds there are now using optics 7.1. So if you're compiling it, you should keep this in mind. And also this means that NVIDIA driver version 450 or newer is now required for Cycles optics rendering. So yeah, this upgrade is required to take advantage of new features and improvements, also known as optimizations. Yeah, okay, next. That's it. I think I covered everything. Wait, no. Fixes. This one fix adds, last week I mentioned about the Cryptomatte metadata being added to, Cryptomatte values added to the metadata of that image. I don't know if you remember, some people were super happy about it. In the comments I read like, yay, thank you, or like for making Cryptomatte useful. This commit in particular called my attention because it's a fix. However, it implements all this metadata Cryptomatte into the file output node, and the community has been testing it in other softwares and apparently it's working fine. So here, statics, for example, confirming that the XR you posted works fine in Nuke. That's awesome. Then also directly into Nuke, somebody mentions that I can confirm that the EXR also works with Adobe After Effects. I think so. We tested the widely used compositing applications. So this is great news. I love it when the community is like, yes, I can confirm, or confirm that it doesn't work in this and other software. So yay, Blender and interoperability. And the last but not least, raise your hand if you're a Windows user of the Blender installer and have noticed that the icons were wrong in the, or like were bad in the taskbar. If you have, then worry no more, because that has been fixed. Now this improvement by Eric is fixing this. And why am I bringing this up? Because it's first to thank Eric, but it's a double thank, because he not only published this bug, so he reported the issue. Here, let's go into here in the sidebar. So this is the bug. It's like fix. This is the bug. Windows 10 start menu wrong. Authored by Eric Pickle. So he reported the issue and then he fixed it. Here you can see he's mentioning it here and here. It's a bit fixed. So he made a patch, he reported, he fixed it. You're the boss, Eric. Thank you. And keep posting issues and fixing them. Thank you. Next is the questions. I think we're done with the questions. So time for questions. We have around 20-30 minutes to start. All right. First question, how is the chat going? After Effects hates the XR Cryptomatte. Slow. Hey Pablo, you able to re-upload your custom shadings nodes look patch if you link you posted is dead? Yes, I should be able. Oh, I don't know if I have it, because I actually maybe it's stashed. There is a conflict. Oh no. Yeah, there is a conflict. Somebody changed something and then I have to fix it. Okay, I will have a look later. But yes, let's get started. Nago says, hello, Pablo, I have a question. I have a question about physics performance. I'm a biochemist and I'm trying to do complex molecular animations using Blender rigid body collisions. Is Blender using GPU for the physics calculation, or is it only using CPU? And if only using CPU, should I favor a very powerful mono CPU, or is multi-core better for that? Do you think work will be done to implement GPU calculations for physics in the future? I think it should eventually be added, but for the time being, I would say multi-core. What happened with the chat? It was close. Oh, here. The multi-core processor, I think I would go for that. I think the dream computer nowadays is probably like for Blender stuff is probably like a the more cores you can, like a Threadripper or so, and a graphics card, which usually, if you want to use CUDA and optics improvements, it must be an RTX. Let's continue. Next question is, oh sorry, there's another question. Also, I don't understand, is the molecular script add-on so much more powerful than the vanilla Blender collision system? Couldn't Blender integrate that script as a default way of calculating collisions? Yes and no. It could, but any script that gets added to Blender and it's used by default, it needs to be maintained. So it's tricky, you know. Blender, because all the add-ons are GPL, because Blender's it's GPL 3, which means that everything else has to be, most of it is GPL 3. So it means that if you make anything with Blender using the Blender's API, it's gonna take that license. So you have to publish it in that license and the entire code. That's the difference with GPL2. And I didn't drink anything in the whole hour that we've been streaming. But yeah, then you have to maintain it, and maybe the code is not up to the rest of Blender, for example, or the developers don't want to be involved in it. So yeah, it's tricky. It's not just like you can grab any piece of code that it's out there and just shovel it in Blender, unfortunately. Damian Winichenko, hi Pablo, on all the Blender development team. It might sound like a feature request, although a quite needful feature. I think geometry node modifier also needs a special mode that will treat all its instances as a real geometry. In that case, users could add other modifiers on top, like remesh, shrink wrap, etc. How could it be used? One of the many examples is a tree or ivy generator. Yeah, there could be. I mean, maybe that's not a geometry node feature, but more like a modifier. Would that be a modifier that makes objects real or so? So you can have like an array, and then I don't know. Should it be part of geometry nodes, or should it be its own modifier? So you can move it up the stack. So you can do a bunch of stuff before making it real. So you can do all the crazy node stuff. Maybe that would be better. But how could it be used? Right click, select army to the rescue, please. Let's continue. So Silex asks, hello Pablo and the rest of the team. I have a quick question about fast high poly mesh editing. From what I understand, this is a regression from 2.7. Yes. And it's considered a major project. Yes. We haven't got any update on this issue for 8 months. And from the big Blender project, it looks like it's not going to change anytime soon. High poly editing, even after all this time, it's still generating user interest, as you can see on Fabricator. Are you not afraid that pushing new features like geometry nodes and similar without fixing underlying issues will result in a big amount of technological debt that might stifle Blender development in the future? I think a good example of handling that kind of things from the recent history could be fixing Undo. It's not perfect right now, but it's a lot better than it was before. Bastian's effort was worth it, and he is still looking into improving Undo while working on library overrides. Yeah, well, I think Undo is a good example. At some point, Undo was great, and then in 2.8 it went to ish. It was really not ideal for a lot of people with production, since it was not great, but it got fixed. Then I could say the same about the high poly editing. It's in the roadmap for Campbell, but I don't know personally what's the status of that. You can look at the amount of love up here. I don't know if the GPU side has to do with like Vulkan updates. I don't know. Multi-threaded beam mesh. This is what's this being worked on here? There is a diff. Oh, this is from a long time ago. Mesh editing, edit mesh, GPU optimizations. So yeah, with all this love getting it here, I would say that Campbell is probably aware of this, but I don't know. I don't know what the status of this. So we need Campbell or Dalai to post on this. Next. Let's see. But also geometry nodes, like pushing new features like geometry nodes. I don't think they're related yet, because you can't really enter edit mode for geometry nodes yet. There's no such thing yet. So it's not really what you make with geometry nodes is more like instances, so it doesn't really get affected. The main slowdown is in when you're in edit mode of high poly meshes. Next question by Ayaxem. Thank you for all you do. I've been out of the loop for quite a while now and was wondering what happened to the Animation 2020 focus for Blender. Has some of it been implemented already? Has it been postponed? What else from that revamp is planned for the near future? Yes, some of it has been implemented. Some of it is being worked on. There are many improvements. If you check, just go to the wiki page of the release notes. And if you go to the wiki page of, for example, the current release 2.91 or 2.90 or even the past, and if you go to animation, you're gonna see that some of the fixes that were done are super basic in the sense that not that they're easy, but they're like foundational changes that were done. Improvements, always improvements. The animation curves can now be much snappier, for example. This, when you add a keyframe, that it doesn't mess the shape of your keys. That, for example, the NLA improvements. Now the NLA can be used for more kind of animation layers improvements. Then in 2.92, there are improvements in animation such as here. Look at this, Euler filter. This is also something really under the hood. It's an improvement, but the filter for Euler discontinuity. So when it reaches the end of the shape, you have this jump before, whereas now it is properly blending. Bake actions, for example, improvements in the bake actions here. Before you have this. The bake action now also performs better Euler discontinuity filter. You have these issues in the past. When using for rigging, for example, now you can use custom object space for constraints. So you can take you need less bones, because you can just, instead of having another object to copy the space from, you can just specify it as part of the node. The same with NLA. And yes, I would say that the Animation 2020, as we were expecting, maybe like a new biped, like you should have a new biped or creature generator, that kind of features. It's not there. If you were waiting for that, it's not there. But I find these improvements, like the boss basics, adding a keyframe and that it doesn't jump, to be very important and part of the Animation 2020. However, if you go into the Blender.org website, currently the homepage big link is for the big Blender project for 2021. And as you can see, there is a section for Animation 22. Just to give some room, because 2021, we still don't know how 2021 is gonna go. But the difference with 2020 is that now there is actually money. there is funding for this project. Recently, Amazon, through the Amazon Web Services department, joined the Blender Foundation, the Blender Development Fund. So yeah, that helps financially, but they usually, when they join the Blender Development Fund, they are not asking anything in return. But in this case, it was asked to, like, okay, let's focus in the animation side of Blender, which aligns with the goals that Blender Foundation has for Blender. So yes. Next, Sonia asks, "Hi Pablo, hope you're doing well. I hope you too. If it's not too much hassle, can we add keys to the origins of the object? I know it's a feature request, sorry about that, but it can help animators a lot while doing animations." Add keys to the origin of the object. No, I mean, if you're doing animations, I would really recommend to not touch the origin of the object. That can lead to so many issues. Like if you're using mapping based on the origin of your object, for example, like object coordinates, that's gonna mess, like mapping as in the textures. So if you're doing animations, if you're a character animator, or even if you're, it's not really a character, but anything, just always add a master bone, like a main bone, and then animate that instead. Next, well, actually these ones have 0 votes, so I should go to the first one. But let's do one since I'm already here. Do you know if Joseph Eager is still actively working on the new mesh type for the Intopo, or is already done? It's not done as far as I know, because I haven't seen the commit in master. I've seen him working on that, like I've seen there is a branch that he was working on, but I don't know the current state of it. I don't know if there is a patch even. Probably there's no commits there because we have a because there is a branch. I don't really know. Hey, use case for the align rotation to vector. Thank you, Greens Gold. Let's see it. It's in Blender community. Ah, the car lens flare test. Oh, it's a YouTube video. 3 minutes long. So is a lens flare. Nice outlines. Is a... There you go. Oh, okay, I see. So when it rotates, it's always there. It's always pointing to the same direction. Nice. And you can drive that, of course, I guess, with the copy rotation. Yeah, super nice. Okay, I'm gonna go to the bottom so I can find the well, actually that's all. Okay, let's do these 3 and then call it a day. It's actually already 6:05. So all right, Sam asks, "Hey Pablo, happy Monday." Happy Monday to you. I noticed way back in December Tuesday talk log that there was a very interesting note under the notes and physics section, which seems to have gone unnoticed. For January, the goal is to present either a prototype for real-time interactive fluids or a design talk with a plan attack. I'm reading it wrong, or this means that Sebas is working on real... I am unaware of this. Is to present it. No, I need the delay in the show again. I am unaware of this. Sorry. But yeah. Did anybody ask about it here? No. Maybe you can ask here. No, I didn't know actually. Oh no, these were not liked. Or the like is not being saved. All right. Let's like and hi Pablo, says Ru86. A couple of days ago I found this guy on YouTube claiming that he can bake vector displacement maps in cycles without atoms, just using the default nodes. I've made several tests and it seems to work. Peak related. Oh yeah, there was a add-on that would do like had this built in, but I haven't tried this. Have you tried it? I made a similar test and it seems to work. And I think it was the main reason to not add vector displacement maps to the brushes in sculpt mode. It's not a bug really, and I suppose it could be part of the bake to-do list, but I don't know. That's pretty interesting actually. So how is it doing? It takes the UV, it's half of it, multiplies, subtracts the object, and then you get split in 3. with the map range. Color me surprised. I mean, it could be made into an like this could be made into a node group, right? I haven't tried it, but I'm gonna keep an eye on it. No Gones. Hello Pablo, is there any chance anyone at Blender is thinking of making face rigging course for the Blender Cloud? For over a year, I've been scrounging through the internet trying to find a good, from scratch, face rigging resource for Blender. I tried watching the first 100 search results on YouTube, Googling courses, the direct messaging riggers, asking around on Blender forums. Nothing I've found can even come close to matching the quality, complexity, or completeness of Blender's official rigs. For the software that is capable of so much, it seems that it's nearly impossible for a user to unlock its full potential with the lack of resources. So, have you tried the Blender Cloud? We don't have currently a, per se, a tutorial on that. There are some from the Settlers project, which is the most recent project that has tutorials about the rigging topic in a way. So here, animation, set development, animation here. No, it's somewhere here. Now I can't find it. So the characters are here, the riggings are here. Let's just use the search. Here. Pip using Reify Cloud Rig. Yeah, not about the face, but this is what I remember. The face of Gabby has some... these tutorials are free, by the way, free access, but this is a blend file. No, it's a video. Yeah, I know it's a demo. But the emitter has some more... I don't know if we can search per person here. However, I would recommend you to leave these requests in the Blender Cloud. You can comment in Blender Cloud without actually needing to have a subscription. Actually, the comments are open for everyone. The comments in the assets... No, wait. No, this used to be the case, but now it's limited only. I think, yeah, you need a subscription, sorry. But yeah, we'll keep it in mind for when I talk with the guys on the Blender Cloud. And the last but not least, well, actually it was the last. Yeah, we are done in time for once. How's the chat doing over here? How's ambient occlusion and bevel going for Blender optics? They are implemented. They are part. There's not a limitation anymore. Optics now supports them. Hello Pablo, I'm thinking about starting a right-click select for the Godot engine. Is a website code open source? If it is, it's on GitHub. Yes, and yes, it is open source. Like this entire website is open source. However, it is a kind of tricky if you're familiar with Mongo databases and Docker images and all of that, Python, and setting up your virtual environments for development and stuff, then it's yes, it is open source and you can do it, you can run it yourself. However, it's a bit tricky and like it requires some knowledge. So we are working on a new version of the Blender community website, which maybe can help, but yeah, it's gonna take a while though. However, actually, what you could do, well, if you know all of that stuff, what I would suggest is to go to the first version of this software, like the Dilo software, the one it's called Dilo, this website. Well, it's Blender community, but we call it Dilo, the engine behind. I would suggest you just go to the very first release, go down, and go here, go to the first one. This is lovely. It has the same functionality, comments, images, voting, but it was for one community only. But if you're only gonna have Blender today, maybe you can use that. Try. Yeah, all right, time to call it a day. Thanks everybody for staying until the end. It's been super nice to have you around. I will call it a day and go rest my voice a little bit. I have another live stream coming up now, which is the Spanish version. So if you know anybody that wants to learn about what's new in Blender and want to do it in Spanish, you can go to Blender.Today. Blender.Today is like Blender.Today, but in Spanish. Very creative name, and we have a community there. So if you want to check it out, do it. So we also have a Discord channel nowadays, and a Twitch channel, and all this stuff. All right, time to close everything, full screen, and prepare for the epic. 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Wait, Misa asks, what's the music that's playing? Let me share with you the amazing Thahian. I'm always playing his music, or her music, his music. So this is what I play always in the background. It's a Thahian. It's super nice. I think from these 40,000 views, I'm maybe responsible for half of them. So I'm actually gonna share it in the chat so everybody can listen to this. Super nice. All right, time to go. 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. See you next week, same place, same time, for more Blender Today Live. Alive, real life. Ciao, gracias, obrigado, arigato. I'm mixing happy. Thanks with ciao. Danke schön, danke veo. Grazie. Arigato. Gracias. Tac. Merci. That is all. Bye bye. See you.